Okay.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. Man, I'm definitely looking forward to this show today. And you guys hear me say that on every show, but it's so true. I love doing these shows. One day soon, I know I'm going to be in a studio full time just interviewing people because I love it so much. Hey, today we're going to be talking about Elevate Humankind. And our guest, Keric and Jenn, are going to help us know a little bit more about what that means. And also, just to give you a little insight about these guys, they coach as a team. They providing balance, insights, experience, and understanding to each coaching session. They have firsthand experience dealing with childhood programming and emotional baggage, having come from homes where support was limited and divorce was frequent. And we hear a lot of that on the show here and there.
Yeah.
After spending years and lots of money on books, mentors, programs, and counseling to find a solution that stopped the pain, we had only identified the issues and found no better replacement or solution. This is how NEI, or neuro-emotional integration, was born and led to the inception of Light Force World. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you guys to Keric and Jenn. Thank you guys for being on the show.
Hey, thank you, Al, so much. It's an honor. I've been listening to your podcast once I heard about you, and I've loved them. I loved your guests, and I was really excited when we reached out and you were so open to us coming on. It was great. So we're certainly happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. And I just want to do a shout out to my good friend who I haven't seen in a long time, Julia Howard. She's the one that mentioned me to you guys. So Julie, if you hear this show, thank you so much. Thank you for thinking of me. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Al. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah. So why don't I'll just kind of explain a little more of who we are and really the mission of Elevate Humankind.
Okay.
And I'll go personal a little bit because that's the background. As you mentioned, you've all gone through challenges. I don't care what socioeconomic situation you're in. All of us can speak to things that have simply gone awry or challenging for us, and we show up in lots of different ways how to cope with that. In my particular case, I grew up and most of us did at my age. Like the era I'm in, it's a rough, children. What's the expression? Seen and not heard, right? And so my dad was very much, you cry, I'll give you something to cry about, right? And just be quiet. And that was not just my family. That was kind of the era, right?
Oh yeah, so I heard that many times.
yeah. And so that's the background, right? And back then it was just you booting up, you tighten up your bootstraps and that's it. Now there's some value to that. I'm not discounting that. But there is a need to understand what you really were feeling and what I was stuffing, basically. And there was some abuse, for me, in lots of different ways that I didn't even remember. That's another story. As I started to do this work, then I remembered these things, but it certainly showed up as a result in my life. So that is my starting point with what I want to get at. You may or may not know different issues you've had as a kid, because most of these programs that we talk about are really created as a child. Why? Well, that's where we're entering the world, and that's the first view we got of life. Right. And so what we learned is this is what that gets really fascinating. So if I were to tell you, if you get a cut on your hand and consciously you don't look at the cut and say, oh, I need to start coagulation, right? Your body just starts to do it. You get a fever, it starts sweating, like it does all these automatic things that you don't consciously worry about. If you were to do it consciously, we'd last about 40 seconds. We'd be dead. 15 seconds. Like we couldn't make it, right? So what's interesting is I was going through my own pain. I did a lot of money on retreats, on therapists, all of these things, and I could never get to a solution that would truly change how I felt. It would band-aid, it would improve, but it would cycle me back through. I would get a trigger, and I would trigger like I did no work. I would trigger back to when I was 7. And I was like, what is going on? And so what we've learned is so amazing to me. The subconscious, as much as it keeps this amazing body going, it controls and protects our internal self. So twofold, physical, spiritual. So as it has an emotion, that is how we create programs that creates the blueprint in our mind maps of what we're going to predict our behavior in the future. So let me give you an example. The more traumatic an emotion, the more you feel an emotion, and it could be positive too, it will create a program to either attract more of that or to repel that. So let's go to a very basic example. So let's say there's a 6-month-old, learns how to crawl, and he or she gets put on the couch, and it crawls up to the edge, and they're kind of head heavy, and they topple over. Well, two things are going to happen. The first is fear of falling instantly. They're going to have the fear, and then a thump on the head. So now you have two things. I have fear of an emotion, which put you at a high level to operate a program. Then you throw in pain on top of it. And in that millisecond, Al, without you knowing it, your subconscious job is to say, okay, only the facts that it knows in that moment. That's the challenge we'll talk about in a second. It knows this. I felt horrible feeling. I felt pain. It looks back at the couch and says, I don't know what that is, but a program to avoid that in the future is what we're making right now. And it's cemented deep in your core based on the level of pain you felt. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you bet.
Any sensory experience that you have. So, I mean, if the couch is yellow, maybe you hate yellow and you don't understand why. Maybe you smelled leather and, so you equated the leather with the trauma and of falling. And so you have this weird fear of leather that you don't understand. There's the really strange things that we can combine with our sensories. So it's
and it could be done. If I could pause you guys just for a second, it could be done also by somebody saying something to you, right? I heard a story quite a few years ago where this little girl loved to sing, and one day she walked in the kitchen, she's singing a song, and her mom was in a really bad mood, and her mom turns around and says, will you stop singing? You sound terrible. And the rest of that girl's life not the rest of her life, but probably I think it was like 15 or 16 years, she would never sing, even to a song on the radio that she liked, even if she was by herself.
Yes.
And so that fear of going, oh my gosh, if I sing, everybody's going to think I'm terrible. And it was just something that her mom said to her in a bad mood, not really meaning it, but that stuck with her.
So in that moment, let's take that example. So she felt sadness from her mom and hurt. The core went, ooh, singing can cause this kind of problem. We're just going to make a program. I'm stopping singing.
I'll never sing again.
I'm never going to sing again. And so right then, done. And so those are some really good, that's a really good real example. And that happens all the time. That exact thing when we're kids, that is what we get a lot of. Exactly that.
Singing equals pain. So we don't sing at all.
Or embarrassment, or if this is bad, then they attach another belief like, if that happens when I sing, then I can't go do on my own anything, because that might be worse than what I was when I was singing. So it can add other programs that stem from the root of that program. And so and it sounds complicated, like we can't find it, but we have a very simple process of really how to identify that and break it down in a way that it works. And so does that make sense so far?
Absolutely.
Can I go on to the next thing? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So imagine that same idea, even in a relationship. Like, let's take the mother in the kitchen. So another program that could have come from that little girl stopping singing, the core could have looked at that and said, my mom kind of caused me pain. She rejected me. I better have a program. Don't get too close to mom because she causes heart hurt. And so then you wonder why there's disruption, or you can't quite connect like you used to, or maybe there's battles when they get older. Like there's programs running oftentimes like that on that same moment. So that one moment could do a lot of damage. And so a lot of listeners out there will relate to this. They'll be like, oh my goodness. And then, so if you're out there, I'll just say this. So there's an obvious, so some people know obvious, what's happening, like that, this happened to me and I know it's affecting me. A lot of it could be, I don't really know, but you do if you look at the results in your life. So you can just look at your life, and if there's something that isn't going like you want, then there's something to look at. So they don't have to know. They can go, oh, but I don't like authority. I know my managers, I have a hard time getting feedback from managers. Okay, that's an example we go back and look at, right? So it's very easy if we're coaching to know which direction to go. So it's nothing's hidden. We just have to look through it. And the biggest thing we tell people is, look, we're not here to judge at all. That's the least of what we're doing. We need to have you be honest because it's about you. It's not about us. We need to know what you were feeling and what happened so we know what to look at, what to focus on. And so and here's the unique piece. And so what we've learned is we don't do hypnosis. You're not, nothing like that. But we do some breathing meditation, and it's very precise, but not long. But what we found is those that meditate for 10, 12 years of our clients, we get to a point that took them a decade to get to. And you can get at session number 1, the first process, the way the verbiage is, and it's really, I did not know this because I'm not a yogi. I don't meditate. I do now, but building this, that wasn't my background. I did medical. I mean, I was running medical companies. And so it was very interesting to hear people that have done this kind of work would tell us, oh, you're doing this. And I'm like,
yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah, we're like, what? I don't know. I just
this guy's program, or this I read this in this book, or
And so what's interesting about that, and that people should probably know this, it's pretty fascinating, is I'd mentioned I tried all these different ways to get to the results, right? And for years, we're talking 25 years here. And just
it was fun.
Yeah, poor Jen. She was with me for the ride. So I read a book, it said you should be meditating. So I was like, okay, I don't know what that is exactly, but I'm going to try. And so I would just, like all of us probably, you start breathing and trying to focus. My mind's freaking everywhere. But one day I was just having a bad loop. It takes me out for a few days. So when this happens, it's the kind that you're pretty much stuck at home. And so I was in that space and I was just like, look, God, like this, I can't do this. Like I have boys I got to be an example for. Like I need to figure out what on earth I can do to get this going. And I started getting this download, this process. And so I would go out, write it down. And sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what this is saying. And so I would have to ponder it, work through it. And then I would talk to Jen, and she's very spiritual and insightful. And she would get hits on, I think it's meaning this. And so as we went through it, in about a week and a half, we had the system, the neuro-emotional integration.
Wow.
And so I don't know all the stuff that was pieces of truth that's already out there. I didn't know until clients would say, oh, that piece was from a book that I read, from this. I'm like, oh, sweet. And so what we have learned is it's truth of how we can tap deep into our core and heal very, very simply. And the most important thing is without reliving the events. There's a myth out there in the world here, and if you maybe know this, is the myth is you need to experience the pain, get really deep and bring it all up to get rid of it. Well, you don't. You really don't. You can do it in a way that's peaceful, believe it or not, and relieving, not angst and this bad thing happened. It's so
bringing the whole thing up again, which is
but it's releasing. It's a releasing process. And so you can let this trauma go. You don't relive it. You observe it. You become an observer because we're working with our subconscious. The subconscious is doing the work, not me in front of you. So let me explain that now. So what does that look like? Well, we've learned if we identify the subconscious as a younger version of ourself, let's say a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, you view you as a 7-year-old. Now, we've also learned as you speak, you don't just think it, because then your conscious gets confused with subconscious. And if I ask a question, they're like, well, is that me or is that my subconscious? So you do the breathing meditation, we get you in the right spot. We pull a younger version of yourself up and do a direct conversation. And I have my client speak out loud to himself or herself. And pretty soon it's the rhythm and your core we all self-talk. That's the thing. This isn't a new piece. We self-talk all the time. If you hit your thumb on a hammer, maybe you don't like the words that come out, but you may say, "Ah, that was a stupid,"
I've got that. My nails just growing back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you're
And
right.
so,
Some words came out that I usually
yeah,
don't
yeah,
say.
yeah. And so, in most of it, what we've learned, and this is another important piece, is our default isn't positive. Our default emotional state is survivor. So just like your core is designed to keep this body going, it keeps us emotionally going, but not optimally. It's surviving. So that's not enough. So we need to become the captain of our ship, the captain of this body, and control our emotions, control our thoughts to go into a thriving space, not default, just survive. Just survive is find a band-aid, right? And you're familiar, obviously, listen to your show now and that your guests are, where we know about addiction is it's not about the addiction, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's about what's going on, what's beneath that. That is a self-medication process or whatever it might be. But we all know there's something going on a little deeper, right? And so that's what we go to. It's not about this outcome we're seeing. It's much deeper than that.
Yeah,
And so
can I elaborate on that
Yeah.
real quick, Keric? So I'm going to be, I get very vulnerable on the shows as well. Okay, so we went out to the West Desert a couple of weeks ago. My sister's boyfriend his family's got some property out there, and we took off, and he has found a place where they find a lot of arrowheads.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I hadn't done that since I was a kid, right? And I'm just like really excited I get to go out, and it's very tedious and boring in a way, right? Because you walk really slow and you're constantly staring at the ground, and you're looking for a lot of the stuff out there was Ottoson, like what I'm wearing right here, like this black crystal type stuff, because a lot of Indians made arrowheads out of Ottoson as well as flint. And my wife's with me, and she's like, well, I'm thirsty. And I had my backpack, and she grabbed the bottle and got a drink of water, and then she grabbed some licorice out of it. And we were both standing there staring at the ground. I turned around and I looked, she's gone. I mean, literally, it's just like she just vanished. And I'm looking all over, and I'm yelling her out her name, because I'm thinking, well, she couldn't have gone very far. I don't even know how much time went by, right? Because I'm staring at the ground, walking real slow, looking for arrowheads. I'm yelling her name, not hearing anything. Finally, I hear her yell my name. I'm whistling, I'm yelling back. I finally ran into my sister's boyfriend. I said, hey, have you seen my wife? And he says, no. Anyway, I'm like, okay, if she's going to get lost, she's going to start freaking out, right? Because we're out in the middle of nowhere we've ever been. We don't know the terrain that well. So I start working my way back, and next thing I know, here she comes up over a hill, mad as a freaking hornet.
Oh, no.
I mean, I could see the look on her face, and she was coming at me like she was ready to knock my head off. And she's like, thanks for effing leaving me. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't leave you. The hell if you didn't. And I'm like, whoa, now wait. We're both looking for arrowheads. I turned around and looked, you were gone. She goes, no, you just took off. I'm like, no, I did not. And she took off back to the truck. So I was talking to a buddy of mine who works the AA program. He knows things so well. He's worked his butt off. He knows how the human mind works and thinks just about like what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And he goes, that was a childhood trauma that happened to her when she was little. She felt abandoned. That's why she got all upset. And I started thinking a little bit more about it. And I've watched her go through a lot of that stuff, right? During her recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I also watched a lot of times when she went into recovery where whoever she was working with would draw things out of her that she didn't even realize happened. Because as you said it, Keric, our subconscious has a way of burying it deep to where we don't think about it. But it only takes a nanosecond for that thing to be right in front row, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, all these emotions are flooding us again.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you said that, because to me, with what you just shared, that's exactly what happened with my wife and I out there.
Yeah, it is. That's a great example. And thing is, she's not going to sit there and tell you this is what happened. She doesn't know, right?
Because she doesn't realize it.
Yeah, and that's why it's challenging. And you're like,
Yeah.
whoa. But she went to the little girl that was left abandoned and hot. Now she's an adult. She's like, how dare you do this to me? She has a voice now.
Yeah.
So you get the wrath of a 7-year-old who, and I'm not saying she's 7, but you get what I'm
correct.
It can bypass all of the things and go right back to that time. So that's essentially what we do. We go back to the event. And so it's a perfect liaison. That's so in this case with her, we would do a session and say, when did you first have that rejection or abandonment? And we're in the zone. She doesn't have to do it. That's the beauty. She consciously is sit there. She asks a question and then she listens. And then she'll tell you. It sounds crazy, but it's so cool. And then she would say, oh my goodness, I was 6 years old on a swing set and my father, da, 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 da. And then we know. And she doesn't have to think about it because her core goes, oh yeah, that program. Oh yeah, that's when we were 5. Because it doesn't care. It's not going to hold it back. Your core is like, oh, I'll share everything. Yeah. And so then we release it. And so that's the next thing. So how does that work? Well, you simply release it and you speak to your core. Now that sounds funny, but it's not just an affirmation where you're constantly going, I believe, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, or I'm at peace, whatever. Do that a million times. We go to that moment of the pain and the core releases it. That's who made it. That's who's going to release it. So we release it from our heart. And you know how the gut brain works. So mind, heart, gut brain, they're all tied in together. Your whole ANS system, which ties into your amygdala, which is your fight or flight, right? So you can see how she was fight. She hit the fight and she's like, it's on, dude.
Yeah.
And so, so we address all of that. That core, not her, releases it. And then we run a new one. A new one might be run a new program in your heart, mind, body, and spirit. And the new one would be, I'm a strong woman and I enjoy balance and peace in my life. Something like that. And then again, the core runs it, your subconscious. So when we're done with the session, she doesn't sit there and go, now, what did we say? I need to say this 1,000 times. It's a program and we just ran it. And so when she's sleeping, guess what's building 24/7 in her favor now? Right. And we can add whatever that looks like. We have clients across the board, some nothing with this kind of stuff. Some is just, I have no money. I have a blockage on money. And so I fail, I get money and I lose it. Okay. So then we, whatever it is, we've had it across the board. Mostly it's more emotional trauma as the clients we get in addiction, because that's who hear about us and it's referred by friends. And so it's been more of that than other things. But you get the piece, and that's the difference of how it works.
So basic. Oh, go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say, sometimes people make different programs based on the age they're at, and they completely conflict. Like for instance, we had a client who he was in that money cycle, and he knew he could build money, he could make whatever he wanted, and he would. And every quarter he would build and build and build, and then something would happen. And a lot of times it was even out of his hands and it would just disappear and go away. And so in the process of doing a session with him, we knew this part, that he had the quarterly, I'm going to fall off and everything's going to disappear, but we didn't know why. And so as we were guiding him, Keric does most of that. We were guiding him and he's like, I don't see what this has to do with money. Like what we're talking about right now has nothing to do with money. And we're like, just bear with us. We're getting there. And so he had made a program at a younger age. So he'd made that program, Happiness is Wealth, at like 12. And then he figured out that he had also made a program, No One Can Ever Be Happy, like ever. It doesn't exist. So he had these two programs running from different life experience points in his life, and they were just running all the time. And if you're unconsciously just running things, it's going to come up when it comes up, right? So of course he'd get successful enough, and then this 5-year-old program that's like, you can't be happy, and he's like, oh yeah, you're right. I can't be happy. So
Yeah.
let's find a way to be miserable. Let's just lose all of our money.
Yeah.
And so he was just a really strong, like some people have this ability to manifest things really well.
Amazing. He can make money.
He can
and
do
he's
that.
a good guy. It's a good way. He just can make money. His businesses just flourish.
Yeah.
But he would lose it all. Either people, you know, a lot. It's just
fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great example. So then once we identified it, and he's like, oh, because then you're like, how does that trigger? Well, when his happiness exceeded the program, the second program that's running in the background. So when he's making money, it's happy because he's working and money is happiness. But as soon as the happiness triggered, you can't really be happy, then the programs flipped and this became dominant and this became backwards. And then it went, oh, we're not happy. You need to lose all your money to show that we can't be happy. And in relationships too. Then his relationship would go sideways. His wife, oh my gosh, it was just this crazy cycle. And once we were able to do what we just did, I showed you, then guess what? He keeps his money. The guy just, he keeps it. He's doing amazing because that's gone. And now that's just an example, which is a great one, of that kind of example. And so think about.
It goes to show, and I've had a few people on my show who talk about trauma and changing your mindset and that, you know, and one of my buddies said once that it's like we've got all these neurons in our brain, right?
Yeah.
And they're plugged into sockets that aren't good sockets.
Right.
And really it is just as simple as unplugging it and plugging it into a fresh one.
Yep.
However, the trick is knowing how to do that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And having the tools that you guys teach helps.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. So what we've done, and I've done a lot of therapy. Our clients mostly have done a lot, some 10 years, 20 years of therapy. And I'm not picking on therapy. It's just a different module that's designed to go often, right? And you improve, but you're going often. Ours is not like that. It's really in about 3 sessions, our average. Now, if someone has had systematic abuse since they were, a year old, that's a little different. So there are some exceptions, but for the most part, 3 sessions, we have 3 categories that we feel that we know. If we scale everything between 0 and 10. If someone's at an 8 or above, their craft's gone. Like they're flying, their wings are open. And here's the categories. That's free, worthy, and whole. And if you understand that once you do the work, all pieces of people's issues, regardless of where they came from, all fit under the worthy, free, and whole. And so, or free, worthy, whole. And so we work, whatever comes up under free, we clear that up in a session. Whatever's under worthy and whole, and then they're good. Like they're operating, I call all 8 cylinders. They're running, the game's on. Plus, in that time, they've learned the system. So they have a worksheet they follow. So I want to teach them to fish. I don't want to be always giving them the fish, right? And so we're teaching them. So they learn how to do it. They got the majority of the stuff gone, and then they're flying, and then they know the system. So then they're at work and they get a trigger. They don't go, we don't call it triggers. We call it a message, a signal, the message. What's the message? And they go, oh, that's a new way to think about it. Yeah, there's a lesson here. What is it? So they learn that. Then they have their worksheet and they walk through it really quickly because they've done a lot of work. And then they're doing their thing. And so that's what we love, because the other part, you saw light force. I believe strongly, and Jen does too, if I clear up my garbage and I light myself up bright, right? I become a light. I'm striving to be my better side, not perfection, stay away from that, but I'm striving to do my best and be accountable. Then it creates that space for people, for example, in my family or my coworkers. And if someone else comes, then they light up, right? And so we're light force then our clients are doing this. They're now out in the world referring to their friends and family. So now we're creating a light force in the world, because the world can be dark. And I believe that. Some people might disagree, and I don't want to start any battles, but our experience has been there is light and there is dark. And so we're basically giving people peace of mind, peace of heart, and they become bright, and they literally do become bright. Maybe you've seen that with those that work through where they look brighter to you. You can see that connection. And so that's, we say, elevate humankind. How do we do it? Well, one human being at a time, we get them, their light turned on, and then they turn others' lights on. Then they come here and they use examples like this with their kids. Every parent will learn what they learn, and they start raising their kids with the patterns we taught them. So then that family is ideally bright. And so it helps support this world of unease. I don't know how to say it, but there's a lot of unease right now. And so sadness and grief. And so that's how the mission comes into play.
So I got a question for you, Keric, really quick.
Yeah.
With this program that you guys do, how it helps train the mind to think differently, right? Just let things, accept things how they are, and just actually you're speaking your, gosh, how am I want to put it? You're speaking your mission, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So what about the ego? Where does the ego fit in? Because the ego is a tricky son of a gun. It can come and take over pretty quick without you even realizing it. Does that also help subside the ego with these programs, to where, because I had someone train me once, and he was helping me learn how to be more connected spiritually, right? And listen, who I call my Holy Spirit. Some people add angels, right? I have a Holy Spirit and angels. I feel that's who directs me and guides me throughout my day. It's that voice in my head. It's not, oh, you should do this. Well, why should I do that? Oh, because that's not the voice I'm listening to, right? Mm-hmm. So once I learned that, my life started going, it's that gut intuition, right? It's that gut intuition. And there's times I've turned a corner because my head said turn a corner, and then I turn the corner and I get down the road a mile or two, and I'm like, why am I going this way? Mm-hmm. And it's because that voice told me. You also talked about what is the lesson behind it, right? So lessons behind our decisions. I've come to realize that voice could have just kept me away from an accident, because if I could have went straight, maybe I would have gotten an accident, or maybe seen something I didn't want to see. I mean, everything connects. And I think that's what you guys are saying. Everything connects. Even like what I shared with what happened a couple weekends ago. My buddy and I was talking about it today at work. And he goes, did you stop and think what the lesson was behind it? And I'm like, I did. I really did. I was like, that
was impressive.
What caused this, right? What caused this? And I was even running back. I was rewinding things, going, did I really take off? I mean, did I literally just leave her in the dust, right? And then I'm like, okay, no, okay, so what was it? And it really helped me, because later that evening, when we were back at the campsite, I even went up to her. Now, I started chasing her at first, right? Because I'm defending myself. And then it's like someone put a freaking wall there. And I stopped and I went, what am I doing? I'm trying to defend something that I know I did not do. I need to think about this a little bit. So I kept looking for arrowheads. Later that evening, I said, hey, I didn't appreciate the way that you spoke to me back there, right? I did not leave you. I would not take off and leave you in the middle of nowhere by yourself. And I'm like, was that my lesson? So I don't know if it was. However, I'm still even going back to see if there's something that I've missed. So everything that you have
so far, what did you come up with? What if you were to? What would you say? What would you say the lesson was so far in your
my calmness? Seriously, my calmness, because I used to have a really, really bad temper, and I went to 6 months worth of therapy in my mid-20s to learn how to control it, and I have worked my butt off to learn how to control it, because there's times when things have happened where I literally see those blinders closing in.
Yeah.
I see nothing.
You see red,
what's in front of me, right? I could be getting hit from every direction. I wouldn't see it because I'm going.
Yeah.
And I know the signs, and I know it scares me now. I get a feeling inside that it literally scares the living crap out of me, because my anger got me in a lot of bad situations, and I hurt people that I cared about because of it.
Yeah.
And it scares me to go back there.
Yeah.
So that's what I could say right now. That's what I learned is I stopped. I grabbed a hold of my ego. I pulled it back. I did not have to try to say I was right. I wasn't, when I spoke to her, I didn't say she was wrong, I was right, or I was wrong and she was right.
Right.
I spoke in the neutral.
Nice.
Right? All what happened is we got so caught up doing what we were doing, we just separated.
Yeah, that's it.
That's all. So that's what I've gotten out of it so far.
Yeah, that's amazing, first of all, because here's what's interesting. And I bet if you went back to your original anger self, someone comes at you like she did, that's probably an instant, let's roll.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so you handled a core trigger in a calm way, which means you did a lot of work. I'm saying hats off. I mean, that is a natural core trigger. I can just see how you're talking about it. So that means you did remarkable work, really. So kudos to you on that.
Well, I still got a long ways to go.
Things back to your ego thing. So back to your question is, so what is ego? This is my definition and how I look at ego. And everyone has their version, right? You can read a bunch of books, but in general, I feel like when we look at the category of worthy, when people truly can look in the mirror and feel worthy, there is no ego. The ego fades away because they know who they are. They're not confident like natural man of the world. I make good money. I'm good looking. I drive a nice car. Not like that. When you're internally, the deepest spot of who you are is resonating with your magnificence, not based on results of the world, based on who you are spiritually. You are amazing. We are amazing. We are amazing people. And when you can tap into that and know it, the ego fades away. And just like in that moment, you weren't an ego because you were learning your value. If you were to ask a little further, what you've learned is the value of who you are, in my opinion. And you're like, no, I'm worth working on. I'm doing the work so I can be better for others too. But you know your value. And so it goes from a trigger response of you disrespected me, I'm going to have to put you in your place, to I'm going to let you go do your thing. And I'm going to come back and rightly so address it, but not in a moment of reaction.
Yeah.
And so that's my answer is we free the three categories or worthy of the three categories is the most important. And
it tends to be the first one
to
work on.
It is. And when that is an 8 or above, so many triggers melt away. They just do. That people just stop getting triggered. It's crazy.
I can see how that could be, because it's like you're freeing yourself, right? You're starting to love yourself again. I mean, is that how it's looked at, Jen? Really, as people are starting to see that, my gosh, I am an amazing human being, right? And I am worthy of my life and everything that I have in it.
Yeah, and what's really cool is in that situation, you're able to step back and you didn't take it personally. You were like, okay, well, let's look at this. What did I do? Did I do something? Which is self-awareness, right? But you also recognized, which is a boundary, that recognition of, no, I didn't do anything. And if I did, it wasn't purposeful. And so you can stand that ground and basically say, look, I'm sorry that you're freaked out right now, but you can just let her work through whatever that is and then talk about it later and say, hey, because when people react like that, it's very rarely having to do with something that's actually present. When you're super ramped up about something and you feel rage or you feel like huge anxiety about something, so anything like over 4 or 5, that's a past program that you've implemented to protect you from whatever that is. So you instantly run or you fight. And part of running too, I think, is freezing and just like not just being invisible, like camouflage right away.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think when you get rid of the programs and you see the programs, it's really easy to see them in other people and give them grace and the space to kind of work through it on their own. You're like, oh, dude, I know she's really upset about something that has nothing to do with this right now. we'll just talk about it later when she's calm.
Yeah. So what would you guys say to someone that came into you, and I definitely want to give you some time to chat to, Jen, is let's say I'm someone who likes to harm themselves when things aren't going well, right? Because some fall into drugs, alcohol, porn, gambling, eating, shopping, fitness nuts. What about those that come in and say, you know, whenever I'm not liking how life is for me right now, I harm myself. And I don't know why I do it. It makes me feel better in a way, right? Because that's the reason why I'm doing it. Would worthiness would that fall into that category as well? Or more of a free side of, I don't know, freeing something that's locked up inside you?
The whole.
It's whole. That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think there is a slight element of worthiness in it, but I think that has to do with the feeling of wholeness and completeness more. Because when you're self-harming, you're trying to release something. So you feel like a little bit of chaos. You feel like you're uprooted. You feel like your identity is challenged. You feel just kind of a little bit lost. And so you mark a line in the sand to kind of bring yourself back and root yourself to something. And you can root yourself to pain. You can root yourself to a change in your state. And so it's actually really like a lot of the coping mechanisms people have are completely brilliant. Like if you think about anorexia, that is someone who has absolute discipline over and control over what they are eating to the extent that they are not eating what they need to. And they're doing it repeatedly, even knowing that it's harming themselves, right? That is huge discipline. So if you can just move that discipline into something healthy for you, that's all you need to do. And I think a lot of times people, they don't give themselves credit for all of this amazing capability that they have to compartmentalize things or to make it work in their life. And when you tell them, like, look what you've done, like, this is amazing what you've done. You've done this for like 5 years really consistently. That is so fantastic. Do you have any idea how powerful you are? And they're like, no, I never looked at it like that. And so sometimes just shifting how you look at something and having a different perspective on the exact same situation, you're like, oh, it's like the light comes in from this side instead of this side, and you can cut yourself some slack, you know?
I'm glad that you put it that way. And the reason I started smiling when you said that, because I remember a guest that came on the show who actually went to a bridge to commit suicide. He was on a business trip. And he was going to jump off this bridge. And he had an issue with porn since he was a young boy. So it was like 2 decades worth. And if I remember right, he prayed before he was getting ready to jump off the bridge. And he heard this voice in his head that said, why are you not celebrating the days you didn't use? Because the wording is still the same, right?
Right.
And he stopped and he started thinking about it, and he's went, yeah, I've gone 2 days before, but I think I went a week one time, right? So he goes, that very moment that light bulb went off, and instead of beating himself up for the days he used, he started celebrating. He changed it and started celebrating the days that he didn't. And he goes, with his amazement, with time, his usage got less and less and less. So basically more time under his belt, right? And before he knew it, he had 6 months. And then it was a year. Then it was 2 years. And it was because instead of, like you said, how some people are beating themselves up over things, instead of looking at the positive part of things, right? And going back to what Keric said, what's my lesson behind this as well? Yeah. So I think it's very powerful, and I'm not the professional, but I think it's very powerful if we look at that as well in that 2 cents. And I don't know if that falls under all 3 categories, just by saying, hey, I'm going to celebrate the good things, right? And, you know, maybe my day sucked today, You know,
Yeah.
maybe I accidentally hit a cat, or I backed into a light pole, or someone was rude to me at the store. However, I saw a flippin' amazing sunrise this morning, right?
Yeah.
Clouds
Yes.
flowing across the mountainside.
Yes.
Incredible. And so those are the kind of things to switch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And one of
That's
the,
amazing. And that is the process. It's training your mind. I love how you said that. We have a thing in the training. There's an untrained mind versus a trained mind. And it has examples you can walk through and go, oh, yeah, that is how I show up untrained. And then this is how it shows up if you're trained. So it gets your mind, again, visually seeing it, and it starts to embrace it. Your mind will go, oh, because you're going to direct it to say, look at this diagram. This is what you want now. And so you start training it to say, this is what you want.
and one of the funnest things is bringing that gratitude in. Well, like when you tell someone, look, you can be grateful for what a miracle way that you have coped with all of this trauma from age 6 to 8, with this stepfather. Look at what you did. Like, look at what you created. Look at all of these things. Like, be thankful for that. You did that. You did that. And then that gratitude is like, oh, I'm not my worst enemy. Like, I've just been protecting myself. Yes, absolutely. You've just been protecting yourself. Was there collateral damage? Probably, because you're saving yourself from drowning, right? But if you can see the great side of that, and the gratitude in that to your core for doing that for you, it's amazing. It just shifts everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because you brought up a good point that I think is important. Another myth we have out there is that you know this limiting beliefs, right? And that's always bugged me, because I thought, how am I, if it's me, why am I against myself? How am I self-sabotaging me? Like, why would I do that to me? It never has made sense to me. Well, based on what we already talked about tonight, that is not what happens. It's a program about protecting you. But as you get older, like the couch example, and it does end up looking like limited belief, but it's not splitting you. It's really was trying to protect you. And that helps people grow too, because they go, oh, I'm not, because what happens is they'll think they're sabotaging themselves because they're not worth it. So it's a very damaging concept, this limited beliefs about self-sabotage. And I limit myself because I'm not worthy, because the next one, your brain goes, oh, we're not worthy, but it's not it at all. We're saying, no, you're doing it to protect you. And then you go, oh, so wait, my core's been protecting me? Yeah, because you're of value. And then they go, oh, wait, hold up. There's a whole new concept for me. So I like myself? Yes, you do. And so it really, these little things help though. It's the switch. And then they go, oh, yeah. And then we run the programs, right? Now, some people might go out there and say, yeah, you make it sound all nice and easy. And for the most part, it generally is, in all truth. Now,
isn't that a hairspray?
If someone's had an issue that's 25 years, 35 years, 55 years, is it going to take some more work? Yes. So, but is it all doable? Yes, it is. Now, is it a one-night deal for some of those folks? No, it's not. It's going to be daily consistency, maybe 5 minutes a day you maintain. And so it's not this crazy drama fest. It's 5 minutes a day, you slowly rebuild, like you mentioned, the neurons. You're replugging and plugging a new one in. But if someone's had it like concrete for 40 years, well, it's not an overnight thing. Like, it's been there for 40 years, like a trail in the mountains. If you're on that trail every day, it's pretty deep, right? But as you get off the trail and make a new one down this way through the trees, over time, that does fade. And so you have a new trail.
Yeah, you got to chisel it away, right? I remember walking into a business, oh my gosh, probably 4 or 5 years ago, and they had a statue of a man, and it was probably about, I don't know, 12 inches tall. And it had this man who was all chiseled out, had the abs. You could start seeing a little bit of his abs, like the 6-pack, and he had a chisel in one hand and a hammer in the other. And the other half below where the abs were at was like all obese, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anything for those who struggled with obesity and things like that. The whole point of that statue is I'm chiseling away the old. right?
Yeah.
I'm creating a new me. And it took some time, right? It takes time to start chiseling and talking about many years where it's set in concrete. I do concrete work. When we break out a driveway, we do it with an electric concrete break.
Right.
And there are some where if it's not poured at standard 4 inches, it takes time. You're constantly just kind of chiseling in one place for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And sometimes those pieces break off very small compared to bigger pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people have to understand it takes time. And I think one thing with us humans, with the way society has molded us, we want satisfaction. We want everything happening right now.
Yeah.
And if it's not going to happen right now, I don't have the time to do it yet. I'm tired of living my life the way I'm living it.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and if
that's perfect.
You're convincing your mind that it wants something different. Like you created a program, you found proof to back that program up. That's how we work, right? If I have a program and it's worth running in any fashion in my life, then I'm going to find proof. So if I feel like I should create distance with my dad so he doesn't hurt me, well, I'm going to find ways to do that. And things are going to happen. And I'm going to see the proof in those things that happen, in those experiences. So you build proof and you build proof and you build proof and you make that concrete deeper and deeper and deeper, right? And you're feeling pretty satisfied with this program that it's going to protect you. And then all of a sudden you have this new program and you're like, oh, well, okay. And your subconscious is like, this is great. Let's run this. But I don't like, what is this even going to look like? We have no idea. And so that's part of why we do sessions a week apart, then 2 weeks apart, and then 3 weeks apart. So people can have those programs kind of build that proof. Because once you create a new program, you're starting at ground zero, right? With all the stuff that you don't have proof for yet. Yeah. So you're like, no, actually, you can do this. And then you create this program and it's creating proof for you over time. And so it's really cool to hear people talk about how it shows up, because it feels really subtle, because it's so natural as part of your subconscious. You've told it, hey, do this. And it's like, yeah, let's do this. We're on the same team. Let's go, and then you find proof in different ways, like how you interact with someone, or not getting triggered by a situation that would have made you extremely angry before, or not having fear of maybe being in a situation that normally would have given you an anxiety attack or things like that. So it's really fun to hear people say, well, actually, this did happen this week, because they're like, what kind of things happened? And they're like, well, I don't know, I just feel pretty good. And then you get the story and they're like, oh, wow, yeah, I did this. I went to a movie theater and I wasn't even freaked out. Like I stood in a crowd of people in the mall and like I wasn't looking around like someone was going to kidnap me. I mean, there's so many things that just subtly happen, and then you build that proof over time.
Yeah,
so it's cool.
Yeah, that's true.
What I like about you guys, and when we talked about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember how long ago, I lose track of time so easy. The love and the joy of helping others, right? Because I love connecting and I love associating with people who want to go out there and do nothing but help other people find themselves, right? That's why I love doing what I'm doing, just even in the recovery community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so many people who have dug themselves out of darkness and they understand life, and they've had to dig deep as well. And also what I love about what you guys do is you guys just don't talk about it, right? You said that you give them a piece of paper to where they can go through, and it's stuff that they can use the rest of their life. Even if they start falling back into the wrong direction, they can take this out and go, oh my gosh, okay, I know exactly what to do. To where I'm not coming and seeing you for 2 years because my life is so unmanageable.
Yes.
Right.
It's you're helping them. You're giving them a lifelong tool that they can use, really. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is how I'm seeing it, or not, but however, this is how I'm seeing it. you're giving them a lifelong tool for the rest of their lives, for no matter what happens in their life. They can use what you're teaching them.
Yep. Yep. It's true. It's amazing. That theater example, this gal that had a lot of trauma, and she could not go to a movie. She could not go to a movie. So we did 3 sessions with her. I told you most of that stuff's gone. And she called us last week because we get to know them. We get to know these guys, right? Because you're heart to heart, like you're full throttle, both sides. I'm sharing, they're sharing, and so it's just they get to know us. So she called and said, you know what? I took my daughters to a movie by myself for the first time in their lives. They're 10. For the first times in my daughter's lives, and they're freaking out. They're like, wait, Mom, Dad's not taking us? She's like, and she said I wasn't even anxiety ridden. They went to see Barbie, right? So they went to see that, and that's amazing. But that might sound simple, but imagine the kids going, wait, my mom's handling her crap. Like, she could go to a movie, she can go to the mall and get me shoes now because she couldn't go shopping with them. And so that's a big deal, right? Like, it's a big deal, and I love it. Yeah. And she's just like, Keric, all those
from extreme agoraphobia, where
she couldn't leave the house to going to the movie by herself with her kids is so Mount Everest. And emotions, coming out of a dark hole, like that's an Everest climb to go from not leaving the house at all ever to going by yourself with your kids to a movie. I mean, I was so proud of her. It's like, oh my gosh. And
it reminds me of that movie, that movie my wife started watching a while ago called Shallow. So there's a lady in this show who did not leave her house. Right. And we started watching it, or we were told about it. So we pulled it up. It was either on Netflix or Hulu or one of those anyway. Yeah. And throughout the show, this lady, like, even when she opened the door, she'd open it up just at a crack and look out and talk to people and then hurry and close it. Or if they came in, they had to hurry and take off their shoes. And one day she's mad at her husband and she's chasing her husband out the door. And he's just got this look on his face and she's still just giving it to him. And all of a sudden she realized he had this look, and she's like, what's wrong? He goes, you're outside. And she was like, I'm outside. Oh my gosh, I'm outside. Every episode after that, it showed her, she had this dry erase board or something. And she's telling her husband, today I went 52 steps. Tomorrow I'm going to go 53. And throughout the series, pretty soon she's at 60, and then she's at 80, and then at 100, right? So there are people out there who are like that. To be able to help someone go to the movies with their kids, how amazing and rewarding is that?
Yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, that's what we try to do the best we can, and we strive it, and we do the best. We do have, I don't know what, if you're interested, but do we say, some people don't want to do a session. I get that. They're like, I don't want to talk to them. So we have an online course. If people like that, I mean, do we say what we have, or do we not? Do we just
No, please promote because we're coming up to the end. So promote your show, let people know how they can find you. And then please make sure I have everything, because I'll be uploading this show tonight and it's going out tonight. Okay. So that's one thing about the Wednesday show. They go out the exact same day, because I want to make sure I put that information in the caption.
Okay. I'll have you.
Yeah. So we're on Twitter. Well, now X. We're on Instagram, Facebook. We just are going to start on TikTok, so that should be a lot of fun.
We're gonna film tonight. We're gonna go film tonight.
I just started TikTok about 3 months ago.
Oh, cool.
And I'm already getting up to 800-900, sometime over 1,000 on some of my stuff already. Oh. I only started out like 100, maybe 200, and then all of a sudden one day I woke up and I was like, holy crap, I got over 1,000 on this one.
That's amazing.
Right?
Seriously. Yeah. That is so cool.
Gabby really wants to go film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Light Force World on all of those platforms. And we have, obviously, we've got a website, www.lightforceworld.com. If you go to the lightforceworld.com website, you can see on the homepage that we have a free 2-part series. So if you want to kind of get a feel for what it is that we do without purchasing anything, you can go sign up for that 2-part series. It's a video series that we did. We filmed it and it sends it out to you, I think, 2 days apart. So it's 2 parts, and there's worksheets that come with it. So you can
It's good. People really have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
To practice what we do. So I was going to suggest that. So that was
It
good.
talks about emotions a little bit, like how to break apart emotions and what emotions go in which categories, things like that. And then if they want to do the online course, that is currently on HTTPS.
Yeah.
www.life. It's / the core. So HTTPS ://www.lifeforceworld / the core. So I'll send you that information.
Yeah, we'll give you all this.
And then they can go and sign up. We have a discounted rate right now at $197. So we'll give you a coupon code to bring that down. Because it's typically $397, but right now we have it at our launch price of $197, and we'll give your listeners a discount even off of that to join that course.
Yeah.
And then if you'd like to get coached by us as well, that's on our website as well, as under the services tab. You can go purchase that. So
okay, yeah, please, as soon as the show's over, if you guys have time, please get that to me, because while I wait for all this to upload, and then once it uploads, then I'll go in there and I'll add what the title is, and I'll start putting a little bit of the caption in there, and I want to make sure that all that information is on there so people know how to find it.
Okay.
Great.
Can we just email you? Is that the best way?
Yeah, you can email it to me. Yeah, because that would be really good, because then I can just copy it and paste it right on the show.
We'll do it right now.
Awesome. You have any other questions for us? For you?
No, I don't. I was just going to ask you guys, do you guys have anything else you'd like to share before we sign off?
I will. Thank you. I'll just tell you, I was going to give Jen a little more time, but so she's, what she's not saying, she's really amazing at. So she holds space when I'm doing the coaching. So, but she'll get hit. So her gifts are, basically messages. So she'll get messages for that particular client. And so that's been really helpful too, that it's hard to explain how that works, but it just adds to them getting real connection with maybe a loved one that passed or something, where they can really feel the truth of it. And so I wanted to share that a little bit too, just so people know. It's kind of cool, because if there's a message there, she's able to receive that and then bring that to the session as well. So then that comes up pretty often, actually. And so that's another gift. We could have another show on just that, but wow, that's been really cool to connect, that there's a lot more support beyond just me and you. That's really the message I'm trying to get at, is she has a way to let people know there's a lot of loved ones that really support us that we don't see. And that's my last thought, is we have us doing this work, but trust me, and you know this, you felt this, there's angels, there's people that really have their best interest. The guy on the bridge, that could have been a grandpa for all we know. It could be the spirit, whatever. And so when you allow the healing in the space, there's just so much love and support beyond even me and you. That's amazing, that I just want people to know that too, that they're out listening, is that there's just a lot out there. And so I'm really
beautiful little human tapestry we're all weaving together.
You're so correct. That's exactly what it is. I've been working on myself since 2009, when I lost my job of 24 years, and I will continue to work on myself until the day I get called home, right? Because I believe there's always improvements to be made. And I go back and I look at myself of who I used to be, and I thought I was a great person back then, and I've come to realize, I was who I was back then. I wasn't the person I thought I was, and it's okay, because I had to go through that person to appreciate the person that I am today, right? So it's it's cool, and it changes your life. Seriously, it does. And talking about spirits and angels and different things, it's so many times it's like the right person just falls into my life right at the right moment. Right. And it's just like,
I love it.
Whenever that happens, I'm like, thank you. Because that's where it's coming from. I don't know who I'm telling thank you. I just want to say thank you.
I do the same.
I know, I did not do this. This happened for me. Thank you.
Right. Right. Yeah, it did. Yeah. Because we don't have a way of controlling our lives. For me anyway, that's just how I'm saying it for me. That's how I see it. And I've learned a lot of this from the interviews that I've done with people who are in long-term recovery, right? Their life was unmanageable. They couldn't manage their life. Once they gave it over to a higher power, whatever their higher power is, not all of them are God. Some are different things.
Yeah.
That's what works for them. It's a higher power. It's something greater than them, and it works for them.
Yes.
And it's amazing to see where they're at in their lives today and what happens. Now, does that mean life's not going to throw a handful of crap in the fan anymore? No, it's still going to be a handful of crap going in the fan. However, there are different ways now you know how to take care of it, right? You know how to manage it a little bit better because you have that peace coming to you. Yes.
Yes. Well said. I love it. I agree. That's great. Yeah, this has been awesome. It really has. I love your platform. I listened to 3 of them now since the last week, and I like how this flows, and I just think it's just great. So I just really want to say thank you for letting us be on your show. And we're excited to keep going and whatever that looks like down the road.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys. And again, Julia Howard, thank you so much for sending these 2 lovely people to me. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah. I love the show. So you'll be watching the 4th one here pretty soon, because it'll be you guys.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. All right. So don't leave when I hit stop record. Please don't leave for a second. But hey, guys, thank you for all your support for the other side of addiction. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you to all our sponsors, all our amazing guests, our guest co-hosts when we have them. We used to have them a lot when we had a studio. We haven't had so many right now, but still, thank you to everyone. Because again, all our listeners, none of this would be possible without you. Now, before I sign off, guys, I'm going to throw out there to our listeners, mark your calendars for Saturday, October 7th at the Miller Free Enterprise in Sandy, Utah. We've got our 3rd Healing Utah Success coming up. You guys do not want to miss this one. This one, you thought our one in April was really good, and thank you everyone for all your amazing feedback. That's what made us decide, well, not made us, that's what helped us decide to do one more before the end of the year. And this one is going to be even bigger and better. So we inspired a lot of you at the one in April. Man, bring some tissues, but also be ready to bring some smiles and a lot of love, because we've got a lot of great stuff for you guys today. All of us are working on changing up what we're going to talk about. So you're going to hear some amazing things. So again, remember October 7th. Again, thank you guys. We love you. And remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.